Hi everybody, my name is Pat Barrett, former British and European champion, two-time world contender. Today's topic, we're going to talk about progression and opportunity in boxing. Let's just talk about a boxer with minimum experience, like one of my boxers, Niall Brown. He's crossed over straight from mixed martial arts and he's turned pro. And in that time, because he's had no amateur fights, I've kept him really busy in boxing. He's had 5 pro fights in a year and he's undefeated, okay? 2 stoppages. To me, it's not about knocking people out, it's about him learning the game, going the distance and being educated. By the time Niall Brown, in 2 years' time, I think he would have had about, I would say, the way I'm keeping him now, he would have had about 12 fights within that 2 years. Maybe 6 fights a year, if possible more than that. And that's the way you're keeping him busy. So where he's not had the amateur experience, he's making up for it as a pro by keeping him busy, getting him the right fights, learning the game. So the transformation for when he does fight for the title, he's just done as much as any amateur kid that's had 100 odd amateur fights and then turn pro. Because it's a different style of boxing, the amateurs and the pros. And you have to learn the pro game. More to the point, he's already done the transformation and learned the game. So him crossing over and fighting for the title, it'll be so easy for him. I think it's a whole different concept from going amateur to professional. And I think the way I teach in my gym is no difference from what they would have to, like for instance, good example, Lyndon and Zelfa, they've always had a pro style, yeah, and they took a pro style into the amateur game. Zelfa lost, excuse me, I think it was 2 out of 26, yeah, as an amateur. And Lyndon had a lot more experience than Zelfa as an amateur. Lyndon had about 50 odd amateur fights, including boxing for England. So the transformation when Lyndon boxed for England, I was absolutely kind of a bit annoyed because to change his style when he was on the England squad. And then I had to get him back and then convert him to how I wanted him to be. That's lovely side on, poking that jab out, and it took me a good 6 months to get him back. So it is a big difference and it depends really from where you're at. I mean, the England squad, they want you to fight their way, where they should leave kids to be how they are when they come to them. They shouldn't change them, and that's the difference. So they make it different, the England squad. They make it, you've got to be different this way, and the pros have got to be this way, where me, it's one way. Well, how does a boxer handle and come back from a defeat? Well, I've lost a fight before. I remember losing my 3rd fight as a pro, and that taste and that feeling was absolutely, it was the worst feeling ever, and it was only my 3rd fight. And then from that, I never got beat 5 years on. I was undefeated for the next 5 years. Zelfa lost to Ronnie Clark. Yeah, I mean, it was a controversial win, loss, but again, Zelfa then has never been defeated and will never be defeated again. After that, I mean, he's gone on and he's done really well. So, you know, I think Lyndon getting beat up on the yard, you know, he's been through it, he knows that pain, it's horrible, and I think he'll never want to go through it again. And the ways he's in the gym, the way he's thinking, the way he's doing things now is totally different. Yeah, and you'll see a massive difference and a massive change in him when he fights again soon. So I think it's just how we learn to deal with it. And as a trainer and as a fighter, it's my job to help him get through this and to say, listen, you know, people look at losing is like it's the worst thing in the world, but it's not. You know, it can be the worst thing ever if you allow it to be, or it can be the greatest thing ever if you know how to learn to work up that. And I think for Lyndon, as it did with Zelfa, it will elevate him. With Zelfa, now, as I said before, I think he's very underrated for his achievements and his accomplishments, and I have said that and I'll say it out loud and I'll say it again. And right about now, I mean, there's so much things happening in this boxing game, and you know, you can't sit on the shelf gathering too much dust. I mean, we've got a European title that we can go down that route and defend it. And again, I'm happy to do that because it's another experience, it's another fight, and it's more new knowledge for Zelfa to go on to strengthen him to fight for the world title. But I think Eddie needs to open his eyes a little bit more on towards what he's got in Zelfa and start moving him pretty quick on towards greatness, because anything can happen in this game. And I wouldn't want to see Zelfa just sitting around for nobody. And you know, opportunities come all the time. I mean, there's a lot of other fighters that jump ship and saying that, and Zelfa's a very loyal kid. He wants to stay something, to make a point and to prove something that he can do this, and he can do it with Eddie. But Eddie needs to turn his head round and, you know, reach out to Zelfa and give him the compassion and the respect that he rightfully deserves, and put him on top in the bill in Manchester, yeah, as a main event, to build this fight up for him to fight for the world title, because there's nothing been built up for Zelfa to fight for the world title. When I see some of these kids fighting for world titles after 12 fights, it's like saying, okay, you're there now. And I suppose, again, that's all about your age. I mean, if you're a young fighter, then I think you've got all the time in the world. There isn't no rush. And if you're up against age and time, I think, well, you know, it's like, for instance, Joe Cordino. I mean, what is he now? He's 28, 29, something like that. And you know, he's only had something like 12, 13 fights, and he's world champion. And I think that's great. And I think with Joe Cordino, he can only get better. Yeah. And I think on the other hand, that's why I'm saying I'm going to keep Zelfa polished and sharp and on the ball for something like this. Do you know what I mean? And this is why he can defend his European. Do you know what I mean? Because he can't be excluded and just say, right, this is what you're going to do. And I don't want to be, I want us to have a fair crack as an equal. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want Zelfa to be overlooked. So, going back to that question, what you just said, I think it's about, to know when a fight is ready, it's about time. It's all about timing. And I think Zelfa is overcooked because he's had something like 29 professional fights, lost one. So he's in like 30 odd fights. Yeah. You can't leave Zelfa hanging around for too long now, because he'll fall off. He needs more juiciness to bite into. And just as Joe's done with only 12 fights, again, you know, you wouldn't say that was the right time with 12 fights. But then again, his amateur pedigree, what he's done, has helped him get there. So it's different, this boxing, it's totally different. Well, if a fighter gets injured and can't fight anymore, and what he would decide to do with his life, would he pack it in? Would he get involved in the sport? Well, let's just say, I can't speak on the behalf of any other fighter, but if this was one of my fighters in the gym and he was unable to box anymore, and for instance, you know, the first thing I would say to him, listen, why don't you help me in the gym? If that would be the case. And this is the perfect example. For instance, we had look at Ben Mulligan. He was unable to box no more. Brain scan, something went wrong there, and he was able to box no more. Couldn't proceed his career. He was doing well. But now he's a good coach. He helps Tommy McDonough in the gym, trains the amateurs, and you know, they look up to him, and he's really good at what he does. He was helping me with the pros a little bit. I think he wanted to drop that down to give himself more experience, to bring good amateurs through, and then come back up into the pros. You know, he's got his pro license, he's got his second license. He can work with me anytime he wants to work with us to get the experience. So, again, it's great. Even I go in the gym at night time sometimes to help Ben with the kids, because it's an enjoyable thing, and it's good to see some of these kids coming through, especially in girl boxing now. There's two girls there that we've got are exceptionally really good. So it just gives us another look as a variety. So I would advise me personally to say, put back what you couldn't do, give it back, put it back in. I've had a lot of young boxers going into these pro games, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make good pros. Sometimes it's good for them to stay amateurs to get the experience and to get the knowledge and the belief in themselves, because coaches today, they're not mind coaches, they're more like fitness coaches and getting them fit and getting them hitting the bags and savages. I mean, remember the time you come into my gym and you did some filming and we watched that guy screaming at the boxers and think, okay, fair enough. I mean, it gets them going and it's really good, but there's also teaching that needs to be taught these kids how to be, there's discipline that needs to be put into them. You know, let them know what's good from bad, and that's where we go missing in this boxing today. There's not many teachers. We need that. We need to be able to sit them down, go through things. The first thing, okay, here's another one. What's the first thing you do when you put the gloves on and you go in the gym? The first thing you do is you punch. Yeah, but then no one doesn't show you how to stop a punch. And that's the key. The first thing I want to do is when I put the gloves on, is to say, hey, I already know how to punch. How can I stop a punch? So I remember Brian Hughes used to do this thing with us straight away. We would throw a punch and we would stop a punch. And the first thing what we learned to do was to throw a jab. And to throw that jab, we used to call this the back door. And we used to go. So we used to jab and block together. And we used to walk around the ring. Boom. Walking around the ring. Boom. So we're jabbing and block together. So we've got your offense and your defense. So we're learning two things at the same time. I don't see that no more.